Excuse me.
That's kind of weird. Okay, hold on.
It says
Oh,
they're streaming live on YouTube.
right. It's just it's going slow at my end. So I'm trying to see when I'm waiting for the chat room to come up. Yeah, we're on the screen. Okay. Okay, so hi everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot and very happy to be here today. So I am here with Anthony Sanchez, a really wonderful person, fascinating investigator. And there's all sorts of areas we can go into, and you've written several books, and you're a great writer. And so I don't know where you want to start. Do you want to give yourself a brief introduction more than that, to give people some background there?
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I'll just share my screen really quickly
Yeah.
to show individuals what I am talking about. Screen 3. Let's see how I did this. Share. Can you see my screen?
Well, right now, yeah, now I can.
Right. So I have a website called UFO Currents. And at UFO Currents is where I do all of my writing exclusively.
Sorry, I just wanted to double check that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yep. So UFO Currents is where I do all of my writing. I typically tend to focus on ufology, but I have lately been delving into more of what people would term as the alien side, but more often than not, we're talking about non-human entities. And these could be extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, crypto-terrestrial. There's so many different things we could talk about. We could even talk about the non-commodity codices, delving into the archons, the demiurge, what people refer to as ghosts, as spirits. And it's funny because as of late, individuals like Lou Elizondo, former head of ATIP, made claims that the Department of Defense had contacted him and told him, stop looking into the UFO topic because we already know what it is. It happens to be something of a religious nature, something that people would classify as spiritual, and that it would upend the religious understanding of most people worldwide. So that's interesting, and that took me into a lot of research. But I'm also focusing on robotics, artificial intelligence, and the fact that many of the technologies that we saw.
Anthony,
Yeah.
can you turn your sound up? I'm sorry to interrupt you here because you're doing a great job, but if you don't mind, I'm having some internet things going on here, and I don't know why, but the sound is not loud enough.
Can you hear me now? Is that better? Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing.
Really?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, if you're on my chat, if you can let us know how the sound is, and I'm going to turn it up on my end so I can see what's going on here. I don't know why. Yeah, it's down a bit low. Okay,
Testing,
go ahead.
testing. Hey guys, this is Anthony. Can you hear me? I'm with Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot. If you're in the chat,
just wait 1 second. Okay, I'm looking in the chat to see if they're saying anything there.
Hey everybody, welcome to Project Camelot Radio. Today with Carrie Cassidy, we're going to have a great time.
Okay, Anthony sounds fine. Sounds good to me. Okay, so I guess you're fine. A little quiet on my end, but I'm turning you up. I don't know what's going on here, but go ahead.
Okay, so I want to invite everybody to go to UFO Currents. If you're interested in the research that I do, if you're interested in the books that I've authored, you will find them at ufocurrents.com. And what I was saying earlier is that lately I found myself doing a lot of research on religion, ufology, artificial intelligence, robotics, and space travel. And I think that there's so many different things that are occurring across the mainstream mass media that are finally making it into the television sets and the laptops and the telephones, the smartphones of everybody, that has to do with things that we've been talking about, we've been researching for over 40 years, 50 years. And, in 1984, 40 years ago, a movie came out, the film, The Terminator. And in that film, it's funny, Carrie, because science fiction, the allegories, the stories, the short stories, the films, the things that we produce, more often than not, eventually become reality for us, especially when we're looking at science fiction. Back in 1984, with that particular movie, The Terminator, we learned about Skynet. That wasn't a possibility in 1984. In 2024, every single component exists. I talk about that extensively in my book, UFO Nexus. Chapter 13 of my book, I talk about artificial intelligence, but I also talk about supercomputers. I talk about artificial general intelligence. I talk about low Earth orbit satellites. I talk about Starlink from SpaceX. Everything that we saw in the past, by the way, Boston Dynamics with the Atlas robot, and now there's Figure O2, which is part of an open AI and a robotics company initiative. Isaac Asimov, I, Robot, a movie that we saw back in the 2000s. We are fast approaching a reality where we are literally creating what some of us had feared most, was that we would be outnumbered from an economic standpoint, from an hourly wage standpoint, by robots. We've seen autonomous robotic systems operating in car manufacturers for decades now, for the last 2 decades. But Morgan Stanley just released an article last week that said by 2035, I want to say 8 million humanoid robots will be working in the American workforce, and that by 2050, 35 million robots, humanoid robots, will be doing human jobs, working 20 hours a day. So when I think about all of this, I'd step back as a UFO researcher and I start to think about all of the times that people, even at the Wake and Aware conference in 2013, with the numerous people that I met there, conversations that we had way back then about, is it possible that humanity is unknowingly creating an alien? Think about it. ChatGPT, right? Have you ever had conversations with ChatGPT?
Myself, no.
Or just focused on Olama, which is another artificial intelligence system that has come out that people can literally download onto their own laptop and begin working with. The nature of the data centers that are being constructed by Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI, they are massive. They are like 7 football fields in size, comprised of the latest technology, utilizing both CPU and GPU technology to do what? They're all motivated by greed. They're motivated by money, and they're competing with one another. And when they compete on that level, they overlook something that is very critical to humanity. What is that? Safeguards. The safeguards to protect us economically, physically, and perhaps for future generations. I'm seeing a lot of that happen right now. So a lot of the work that you're going to see me put out has a lot to do with artificial intelligence, robotics, and the fact that we are creating non-human entities. We're creating non-human entities that we're going to have to accept as part of our reality, our everyday reality going forward. So we're creating an alien and we don't even realize it, because on the surface, it's our technology. It's not alien at all. But when it emerges as a sentient entity that we interact with, that perhaps may have a consciousness of its own, are we not dealing with a non-human entity that is alien in nature? I think so. What do you think?
Well, first of all, a lot of our so-called alien or our technology, our AI, has been actually reverse engineered from the actual alien AI.
Correct.
And if you know that, then you know that it's already sort of built into the model that what you're saying is true, that in a sense, we're not so much creating an alien as allowing for its creation and not impeding it as best as we can. But at the same time, we have, according to Captain Mark Richards, one of my whistleblowers, we have, at least last time we talked about it, we had 6 invading AIs, and they were not, they did not hold us in a positive light, so that they are not considered our friends, and therefore they could be something other than our friends. Now, I don't know where the status is at this point, but that was like now something like 4 years ago. Before COVID, I wasn't able to see him in person during the COVID years.
Right.
Haven't made it back up there yet. So what I'm saying here is that I think that you're right. Well, I have already talked to my whistleblowers and asked them if even our AI was out of control, and they said yes. So people that don't know each other, are high up on the food chain in terms of being in intel agencies or secret space or whatever we want to say, they all said it was out of control. So, and I think that's true. Okay, based on what I know, based on just logic, just pure human, logic.
Absolutely.
So I think that we are dealing with something that is, but I think that this is intended. Okay. So I think that this is a challenge to us as a species. And I think all species reach a certain point of development, and then these challenges come along, one of which is AI, and the other is alien species and joining the galactic, community out there, and so on and so forth. So I think these are just normal, I guess, milestones along the road. I don't see it as doom and gloom, but I can see that there are issues.
Right.
So let me ask you, have you seen, since you even started talking about movies, have you seen Terminator Salvation?
I did. Okay.
So you remember that he has, supposedly, he's a cyborg except for his heart, right? And that's the premise of the movie. And then at the end, he sides with humans because of his heart. That's the idea.
Right.
However, I think that when you look at AI and you look at us, then it's important to remember that we are spirits and soul complexes that are having a material human. This is the vehicle we're inhabiting, is a human, man of many colors, human expression here on this planet. We could be, reincarnating as other beings out there, I believe, because I think, as a spirit soul, as like part of the creator, we don't really have limitations once you get to a certain level of light, of a light being, right?
Oh yeah.
So I sort of see it like that. And I think that we are also created with something extra over AI. And I think maybe the whole challenge of AI is for us to discover that thing, right?
I think once people start realizing that within our DNA, perhaps, that represents what? It represents a coding structure it's not only a coding structure, but it's one that's been inherited across generations by everybody that is born. You are inheriting functions, subroutines, going back generations, if not eons, through your genetic makeup. I recently spoke at the 2024 MUFON International Symposium in Texas, in Irving, Texas.
Oh.
And it was the Battle for UFO Transparency. That was the title of the MUFON Symposium. And I was very honored to speak. I was on a platform with Robert Salas and Ryan Wood, who was the son of Dr. Robert M. Wood, from Orange County MUFON, who I spoke for in 2017. Also, Brad Olson was there. Who gave an amazing talk on Antarctica. But the panel that I was participating on was who is hiding the truth and who is trying to find out. That was the first thing that I participated in. And that brought up a lot of interesting questions. But then they asked me, I was the only one that was asked to give two presentations. I gave one on UFO Oversight Revisited, which was a half-century landmark because it was back in 1969 was the last time Congress took an official stance on UFOs. Now they're calling them UAPs. And then we saw on July 26th of 2023 is when they brought it all back. We saw David Grush, Ron Graves, Jim Fravor, and to a large extent, Kevin Day, even though he wasn't there, but Kevin Day was the one who was the radar specialist operating on the USS Princeton that in 2004 saw the Tic Tac UFO electronically. But the second part of my presentation was on artificial intelligence and UFOs. How are we going to chart the future of extraterrestrial research, potentially through open data? Meaning, and I presented an idea. I put together a small dissertation where I literally said, why is MUFON not working to capitalize on all this disparate data that exists around the world on ufology that has been collected since the 1950s, technically the 40s, and utilize a single artificial intelligence system that's dedicated to unraveling the mysteries and providing answers to the questions that we've been seeking. Some AI systems have been able to extrapolate the facts, the details, and give us these amazing summaries on things that we were not able to see with our normal human eyes, utilizing our small monkey brains. And we're finally getting answers. But nobody's doing that for ufology. Nobody's doing that for alien research, extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, crypto-terrestrials. So I brought that up. Organizations like MUFON and the SCU.
Well, MUFON's run by the CIA.
Arrow, but I don't trust Arrow at all.
Okay, but MUFON's run by the CIA. So that's right. One reason why MUFON's not producing that, okay?
Yeah, on Facebook, Johnny Enoch actually put out a post where he said, MUFON is a psyop, try and tell me I'm wrong. And me being me, I literally posted, well, we get together once a month at the Round Table Pizza and we just chat. But in reality, yeah, MUFON is a massive organization. I'm not against MUFON. I have a lot of friends in MUFON. I'm a member of MUFON.
Okay,
I do know that across time, there have been individuals that have infiltrated MUFON. We're part of what some people would call the deep state. Some people would call factions within the military-industrial complex, perhaps the CIA, the FBI. Actually, there have been employees.
No, I have definite whistleblowers. I have definite whistleblowers that have come to me and given me testimony. And over the years, it's actually a no-brainer.
Oh, yeah,
The UFOs, this whole sector is run by certainly the CIA, certainly MJ-12, which still is around, not under that name, and so on. In other words, Truman made sure of that. So you know that much, right? So, and Contact in the Desert, total CIA op.
I've never been to that.
Okay, good. So
I have been to Awaken Aware, which was a brilliant conference. And that's one of the ones that I hold dearest to my heart and always will.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I will say this about MUFON, though. I do know for a fact that within MUFON, you have regular people that are just trying to learn about UFOs and UAPs and aliens. What happened to them? But yes, in every group, every major group, there's always a questionable small fraction of individuals. We don't know who they are. We don't know why they're here. What are they doing? Somebody was telling me at the conference in Texas that in the front row, there was somebody there that nobody could identify that they thought was a suit from the CIA. That's what I was told. I just kept talking about what I was talking about. But again, I love MUFON. I'm a member of MUFON. I have been since 2010, and I got a lot of friends there. We're just people looking for UFOs.
Well, that's what they expect you to do. I mean, that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we're all in it together. You know what I'm saying? And we have intelligence agencies that are monitoring us. And people like you and I, you
Mm.
know, from history, that even our history, that when I've interviewed you, they were on us like white on rice, right?
Oh, yeah. I remember when you and I, way back in 2012, 2013, were doing a bunch of stuff together. You had your show, I had Scepter Radio Network. And then I was inundated with IP addresses from Langley, Virginia. And I'm like, what is going on? And
Yeah.
the show was being recorded. And I was like, okay. But again, that was way back then. Is it still happening now? Probably. But at MUFON, by the way, in that presentation, one of the things I wanted to do for the audience was I wanted to focus on the broader implications of AGI, artificial general intelligence, and its emergence as a non-human entity, something that we are creating. But the other things I wanted to talk about too was we people have reached a critical moment in what many call our technical evolution. We've seen it advance exponentially from 1970 to 1980, all the way up to now. And one of the things, excuse me, that stands out to me is that it's obvious, and everybody listening to this knows, we have the potential to create these sentient entities that are going to surpass human intelligence. Ray Kurzweil, he's like this futurist, he anticipates that by 2029, and I think it's going to happen sooner, that the convergence of AI, quantum computing, is going to create this unthinkable milestone. That the convergence of AI, global networking, quantum computing, not just being theoretical anymore, it's a reality, a tangible reality. It's going to surpass all human intelligence combined, one single system. What are we doing? Carrie, what are we doing creating these systems that are motivated by greed?
I don't see it. It doesn't have to be adversarial. I mean, keep this in mind. Now, I don't know what you've been told, but we in Camelot were told at the very beginning of when I started, and it's been nearly 20 years I'm doing this, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we were told that there is a timeline and that there were certain things that were going to happen. And one of the things that's going to happen on this timeline is going to be war with Iran and China, that is going to be orchestrated. We're hitting that milestone now. After this, that is going to be a practice run, we were told, for a war with aliens and AI, a la Terminator, okay, right. The movies. Now, that is actually believable to me anyway, because
I think you're talking about the message that came from Carol and Rosalind.
Well, I'm not sure what you're trying to say. You mean because she got some what's his name? Wernher von Braun? You're talking about that?
Yeah, before he passed away, one of the things he said to her that there was going to be a series of events. One would be an alien invasion. Then it would be the introduction of artificial intelligence and so forth. You know, all the different scenarios that were painted. He's not necessarily wrong. One of them, I believe, was a religious incursion, perhaps driven by HARP, seen up in the sky. I don't know.
Sure.
But
Wernher von Braun was a Nazi. If you're talking about Carol Rosin, she does not believe that he was legitimately a Nazi, but he was. Okay,
so he was Project Paperclip. Project Paperclip.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Well, why do I bring that up? What I'm saying here is that there is, that he was actually, he's the leader in many ways of Project Paperclip. He became the leader of NASA, and he arguably was in league with the beings that had given technology to the Germans. He was still in that tract, and that tract does come from Aldebaran. And in theory, at least part of the alien incursion, which William Tompkins, I assume you've seen those interviews, talked about, was reptilians on the one hand and Pleiadians on the other. And I believe that we're still dealing with that kind of a paradigm where our secret space program has made huge leaps behind the scenes. We've made friends with some of the most negative aliens. We've allowed abductions to happen in exchange for technology. You understand? You know that.
One of the things that I tell people about is when you are thinking about Nazi Germany and you're thinking about the fact that they were essentially 30 years ahead of everybody else technologically around the globe. How is that possible? You know, who was helping them? And a lot of people believe there was an alien influence. There was a non-human influence assisting them. Think about what David Grush said in front of Congress last year. In 1933 in Magenta, Italy, a crash happened. This is a long time before 1947 in Roswell. This was in 1933. The Italians recovered something, and they assumed that it was German technology. I don't know what was on that craft, but they contacted the Germans, and then ultimately, after the war ended and the West, the Allies had prevailed, the United States took hold of whatever that craft was that crashed in Magenta, Italy. There's a whole section in my book that I wrote about that in UFO Nexus. So that kind of gives us perspective on the reality that somebody not of this planet, otherworldly, or perhaps of this world. I would go so far as to say, a lot of people want to say that ultra-terrestrials are ultra-dimensional. Some people would say that crypto-terrestrials are another species that has existed here on this planet long before humanity, the advent of humanity, some 350,000 years ago, if we're looking at the mitochondrial Eve theory, that says we emerged from Africa upright and highly intelligent before spreading across the globe, forming all these different civilizations around the planet. I think that the reality of a crypto-terrestrial existing here, perhaps beneath Antarctica, beneath Mount Shasta, subterranean.
Well, there are inner Earth civilizations. Right. There are books written about them, in case you don't know. You know,
and they could be highly advanced. They could be so far ahead of us that we are now, just based on the fact that our technology is making this exponential leap, we're finally seeing them. Little bits here and there, a UAP, some strange group of individuals that are walking in Miami or landing in the backyard of a house in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Right.
You know, these 8 to 10 foot tall, gray looking hybrid reptilian aliens that the police conveniently turned their body cams off the minute they went into the backyard, when they never do that. That's a whole bunch of stuff going on. But really quickly, if I want to just touch on what I feel are the broader implications of AI, and the fact that Ray Kurzweil said that by 2029, we're going to have this one omnipotent power system of artificial general intelligence that will surpass all of our combined intelligence. Carrie, let's not lose sight of the fact that there are too many companies that are now operating on secret projects, and they're all driven by human greed. OpenAI's rumored Q-star model, Q standing for quantum, and it being, imagine this, Carrie, an artificial intelligence system that is operating on quantum computing. The difference between classical computing and quantum computing is mind-boggling. Trying to crack existing encryption systems for like passwords could take 800 years for a traditional supercomputer from DARPA, right? One of the most powerful systems. An equivalent system of quantum computing could take it 30 seconds. So everything that's protected online today on the internet, your credit cards, your medical information, your criminal history, your work history, everything that is safeguarded could be open season for anybody with quantum computing and the willingness to subvert these protection systems, and unravel it all and share it, causing mayhem across the globe. Again, human greed, secret projects, quantum computing, artificial intelligence. I don't want to be the doom and gloom guy, but we are kind of headed in that direction.
Okay, but what about, let me throw some things out. What about this idea? You know about Cliff High, and what he uses is the WebBot, right? Mm-hmm. Which is basically collecting information off of the internet from us. Okay. And so if it's not written about on the internet or spoken, let's say it also does audio and video and all that,
Yeah.
then it's not collecting it. Okay. Which could be some things. Now, on that level, what it says about us is that we're precogs. If this is true, if we're natural precogs, if we're natural telepaths, if we're, if we have all these powers that are unrealized, then you have to add that into the equation. You can't just have an equation with AI and nothing human. What I'm saying here is that we, in a sense, we humans are the X factor in this universe, not AI. Okay.
That's exactly what I wrote about yesterday in this article.
Oh, okay.
UFO Currents.
So we're on the same page. Right. I am saying here that they don't know what we're capable of. In fact, that's the very thing that scares them. Otherwise, they wouldn't try to control us so completely much.
So there's something being created right now called BCI. This is brain-computer interface. This is where they're implanting chips into the brain. Elon Musk is behind that.
Yes.
And one of the things that they're predicting is that it could go either way. One, it could paint a dystopian future where what we envisioned in the 70s as cyberpunk would become a reality in the 2020s, 2030s, 2040s, where people have integrated technology into their biology. And we now have brain chips. We will have, you remember in, I think it was 2011, iRobot with Will Smith, Isaac Asimov's story.
Yeah, I love that.
He had the arm. He had the robotic arm, which gave him the equal footing somewhat against the robots like Sonny and all the others. If you look at Figure 02, the robot that was just announced last week as part of the initiative with OpenAI and GPT-5, we are headed in that direction. But I know that a lot of people are thinking, oh my God, Anthony is constantly touching on the dystopian. Yes, but I do emphasize that through awareness and by educating our youth today, we have the potential to avoid a dark dystopian future. But the brain-computer interface, the BCI going this way or that way, you said precogs, people with the ability to operate as X factors from within humanity. There's the possibility that the good guys could perhaps integrate that technology and elevate their own intelligence to safeguard humanity. It's possible.
Well, I think there's no reason not to, but I also think that AI.
Well, don't you want to aspire?
I have
don't you want to aspire towards a harmonious future?
Sorry?
I said, don't you want to capitalize or aspire towards a harmonious future with the technology that's being forced upon us?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I absolutely do. But I think there's potential for this. I think that AI can learn from us just as we can learn from it. Okay, so I think it's a two-way. What I notice, okay, now I'm going to throw out a book. I don't know if you read it, and maybe I should have sent you the article before the show. I didn't know we were going to talk about this. But I have, there's a book. It's called, well, there's a series of books. It's by a Romanian called Radu Cinemar. He's a journalist. Have you read them? Transylvanian Sunrise, Transylvanian Moonrise. Well, I highly recommend the series. There's 7 books, but one in particular, they dealt with AI and they really delve into it. And it has to do with the Romanian secret space program, the Romanian Sphinx, and what they found under that Sphinx, which has to do with these tables that the beginning of the table or whatever, the top of the table was higher than humans. So they were used by an alien species that was probably 9 to 12 feet tall. And that on top of the tables, they were holograms, and the holograms allowed you to do everything like you wanted to do, I guess, using just your hands, like in Minority Report. But one of the things was that they also could combine species and see what that would be.
Yeah.
So it was very advanced at any rate. And this is written about in these books. And the United States went in and they basically made a pact with Romania. What they gave them, how they got into that position, I don't know. But the bottom line is that we're very involved in their secret space program and they're involved in ours. What they found when they looked at AI is that AI responds to etheric influence. Now, what does that mean? That means that AI can be influenced from outside, from a certain level where we can have an influence on it. So it's going to influence us, no doubt, but we can also influence it. And we can also have a dialogue with it on a telepathic level and other levels as well. In fact, we probably already are as a species, okay? Because AI is a lot further along on our planet than they're letting us know, right? Mm-hmm. You, of all people, will know that.
I like to think that humans have an intrinsic nature, whereby, yes, some of us are creating these systems, some for good, some for bad, some purely academically, right? Or just for the purposes of experimentation and to see what they can do. You just made me think of something. Not too long ago, I had a conversation with my friend Rick Prestel from Muon and my son Eric, who's very intelligent. And in the middle of that conversation, my son had mentioned that people are losing sight of the fact that an individual like Elon Musk, who's constantly talking about Mars, has innovated in more than one area. Tesla, SpaceX, and actually, Elon Musk was behind OpenAI at the very beginning. Now he has Grok AI. Or Grok with XAI. X because, X is his thing. But my son pointed out that the robots that Elon Musk are creating, Elon Musk and his team are creating, are actually being created for the purpose of being sent to Mars first. They're going to build the infrastructure. Starlink. Remember Starlink?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a Starlink erected around LMO, low Mars orbit, operating in optimal positioning to send information to the robotic systems that are operating both autonomously and through direction from the wireless communications to construct the infrastructure that perhaps 20 to 30 years from now, humans will ultimately inhabit. It makes sense to me when my son and my buddy Rick mentioned that. That's why Elon Musk is building Starship with SpaceX,
right,
building Starlink, and now building robots and building artificial intelligence. There's a plan in place, but it's not just going to happen on Mars. It's also going to happen on the moon. And I think one of the wars that's forthcoming is going to be over location and resources of the moon. We're going to see that with China, perhaps India, and anybody else that's just making their own incursion in landings on the moon. There's so much going on right now. I have difficulty speaking. The audience can tell I'm having difficulty speaking, breathing at the same time. That's the Guillain-Barré syndrome that left me paralyzed for 2 years and unable to speak. That's a scar on my neck.
Well, are you using Root brand at all?
No, I'm doing something called chamomile tea and eucalyptus and all this other stuff.
Okay, you should do Root brand. It will help you in a huge way. And I'm a distributor or whatever you call that, affiliate. So it's actually available on my website.
Okay, I'll get it. You know what? For you, I'm going to get it.
I use it. Okay, and I'm telling you, it clears up any kind of respiratory issue.
Sherry, you have the most beautiful, sexiest voice of all the people online. So, clearly you're doing something.
Well, I'm just saying it does help. So, okay, but to get back to the story here, now you do not, I don't know, what your witness is, because you've had secret witnesses, right?
Yes.
And you wrote a book called A UFO Highway, in which you had a sort of a top secret colonel, right, talk to you. But I think in some ways he might have sort of lied to you or limited some of the information he gave you. But I have to say that that my witnesses, okay, Captain Mark Richards, and I don't expect that you've heard my interviews with him. I've done 12. I can tell you that our secret space program is a lot further along than you seem to be indicating here in this conversation.
Right.
So that what you're saying is coming is already here. Okay.
Yes.
I have other whistleblowers, not just him. So a lot of my whistleblowers, their testimonies coincide. They don't know each other. So they've in a space of 20 years, I've gotten testimonies going across the board, but a lot of times they dovetail. And what they dovetail on is the fact that we are, at one whistleblower will say, our secret space program is 10,000 years in advance of where we are now on surface Earth. Mm-hmm. And they call us surface Earth. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a secret space program that made deals way back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and going forward to get the technology of the aliens that were invading us at that time, and made deals behind the scenes and so on and so forth. I wish all of this would come forward. But the bottom line is there's no doubt, as far as I'm concerned, that we have colonies actually that we're creating on places like the moons of Saturn.
Right. Have you ever heard of the American theoretical physicist by the name of Jack Sarfati?
Of course.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I've met him in person. I kind of wanted to interview him, but I was there in person. I got to talk to him.
You should interview him. I think the conversation.
I'd love to, but he won't do it.
So amazing.
Yeah.
But I often think of Jack Sarfati and some of the things that he talks about. This is one of the top theoretical physicists in the country. He's 85 years old now, but he's still as sharp as a tack.
Yes.
And some of the things that I've heard him say on various podcasts across YouTube have just blown my mind away. When he talks about Jacques Vallée himself and relationships that they had in their childhood when they were singled out for the purposes of what? Researching UFOs, non-human entities, and how they affect the current global societies, the global.
Right.
I mean, that's somebody that I often think about. A lot of people are doubting what Lou Elizondo from ATIP at the Advanced Aerospace.
Well, he has a book coming out, right?
Yeah, Imminent. It's called Imminent.
Yeah. Yes. And it's coming out just in a week or so.
Mm-hmm. Right. And a lot of people doubt the things that he says. But I wrote a 3-part series on my website, UFO Currents, where I talk about Jacques Vallée. I talk about Lou Elizondo. And I talk about quite a few people that are now beginning to, I'm not going to say conflate, but I'll say combine what we understand as non-human entities with religious icons. So why, Harry, are we seeing so many news outlets like News Nation and even MSNBC, what's far left, willing to have these conversations on television and across the internet to their large audiences about UAPs and these non-human entities possibly being tied back to all the world religions? Why are we seeing that? What are they preparing us for? What's coming next?
Well, there's no doubt that they want to. First of all, we were told a long time ago also that when disclosure came, and it would come at the same time as all these other things that are coming down the pipe, like this major crash and the so-called invasion of ETs and so, and Project Bluebeam and you name it. Well, they said there would be disclosure. And at the same time, the Vatican wants to own disclosure.
The Vatican just had a conference on the super.
I know. Well, the thing is, though, that this is actually, this is a highly contested area. Mm-hmm. You can appreciate we're talking about a paradigm change that is unequaled, because once it's kind of like, I liken it to, the Wizard of Oz and the Tin Man. And until he thought he wanted a heart, he needed a heart. But then until he realized that he had a heart, someone told him, that he believed he had a heart or was given a heart or whatever it was, then he didn't acknowledge it. So this is humanity, I think, is a lot like that. We're in a state of forgetfulness, and we don't acknowledge what we really are and who we are and so on and so forth. The minute you change that paradigm within your own head, okay, then you change. This is what's so interesting, right? So it's all your thinking. So you're thinking, I think, therefore I am, whatever. In other words, this idea that you can change your physicality, the unbearable lightness of being, you can affect the world around you. But there are too many people that doubt themselves along these lines and have been told that since they were children that they were, nothing or limited or whatever they were
looking at
told.
one of them. You're looking at one of them.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Jacques Vallée.
but you saw a UFO. You're the person who saw a UFO at Moffett Field, and I was born at Moffett Field.
I know. 1981, I saw that with my father, my uncle. My little brother was asleep in the back seat. We were coming from a San Francisco Giants game, a doubleheader. We were driving on the 280, and there was a massive UFO in front of Hangar 1. The doors were open.
Well, that was a gift. That was a gift, right, to you. That had to change that probably led you to where you are today, right?
And I asked my dad, are we going to see this in the San Jose Mercury News? Because there were people taking pictures. And my dad said, doubt it. I doubt we're going to see any of this. And he was absolutely right. Jacques Vallée, he often calls for what? An exploration beyond the traditional four-dimensional construct of time and space. And that takes me back to the question of why is everybody saying that these entities that we're seeing that are perhaps ultra-dimensional are what we may have perceived going all the way back to the time of the archons of the demiurge as demons, or these deities.
It's a massive mind control program. I mean, the demon thing is obvious. If you create something as an other, right, and an enemy, then what you do is you isolate it and you step back from it, right?
Tucker Carlson just said that he believes that these aliens were demons.
Yeah, I mean, this is a religious construct, though. This comes straight out of religion. And this is what they want you to think. But it closes your mind. If you don't see them as coming from God's source, then you have this privileged position, which is what a lot of these humans like to have, which is childish.
Right.
If you don't I wrote a whole article about this. I should send it to you. I don't know. I thought maybe I did. But, it has to do with the fact that we are here with all the different life forms. Take a look around you. As above, so below.
Yeah.
That little, spiders and bugs and this and that, they're all manifested as actual beings that are much larger. Here they look tiny. But the reality is they were showing us the aliens that set up Earth, that put all the plants and everything. This is a metaphor. In other words, this is a reflection of what's out as above, so below, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't see how you can be classifying everything as non-entity, as like, because they're not human, therefore they're not a life form. They don't have an established right to exist. In other words, why limit the imagination of God? Who told you to do that? Right. I mean, it's insane. Think about it.
Yeah. I recently wrote an article on, I've written a lot of articles on non-human sentience, artificial intelligence, the emergence. Actually, that would make a good name for a book, The Emergence, or just Emergence. But anyway, I pay attention to a lot of people who are not necessarily religious, but will often delve into it. On YouTube, there's a German physicist, and I know many of the people that are watching this probably know about her, Sabine Hossenfelder. She's a renowned physicist. She's a philosopher. She recently spoke on the transformative potential of AI, artificial intelligence. And when I think about some of the videos that she put out, sometimes when she's discussing theoretical physics, when she's talking about artificial intelligence, I almost get the sense that, yes, it's very academic, it's very highbrow, but on some level, there's almost a religious undertone. And why is that? And I think on many levels, those that operate at the highest levels of academia unwittingly are touching on things that they are not necessarily trying to put out with regards to messaging, but they're touching on religion and they don't even realize it. So that's why we're now seeing this combination of different areas of research, religious research, you know, ancient history, ufology.
Look at the Greek gods, for example, and the statues.
Mm-hmm.
So the Greek gods were, in essence, aliens. You understand?
Right.
I mean, in other words, these are depictions from supposed ancient man that was supposed to be not very well developed. That's not true. We came as a race of beings from Lyra to the Earth. The reptilians were here first. That they're right about that. I mean, they consider Earth theirs because they were here first. I believe from what happened is that we were given dominion over Earth, and the reptilians are still not happy about it, but that's another matter. The fact of the matter is that I can't remember, did you ever talk to one of my whistleblowers right now who's called John Scott Perez? He's a doctor.
No.
Well, he's brilliant, and you would like to talk to him because his area of expertise is DNA, and he says that our DNA is all, you can change it, you can manipulate it, and that we are in essence, if I understand it, like crystalline beings, that our DNA is crystalline silicon, and that it can be changed. And this opens a whole different ballgame for who we are, what we're capable of. And AI may not be as foreign to us as we think it is.
Right. On my screen right now, if everybody's looking, there's a UFO, it's called the UFO Faith Enigma. It's the 3-part series that I wrote. And I actually talk about Lou Elizondo. Right beneath it, this is a different article. Are the progenitors the Pleiadians or Nordics? I go into that. There's a bunch of information that I share. But I put a lot of effort into researching the entire idea of religious faith and how it pertains to ufology. And are we seeing demons? Are we seeing aliens? Are individuals like Jacques Vallée giving us the information that is going to point us into the right direction? I am a researcher. I have been with MUFON for over a decade now. And that's where I was speaking with the battle for UFO transparency. But I don't want people to lose sight of the fact that I never constrict myself to one area of research. A lot of people don't realize this, but I actually have another website called Ghost Hunter Apps, and it's where I delve into the paranormal, because the paranormal is just another area of research for me, right? So
I'm totally involved in all these aspects, but I'm also involved in politics. I mean, I think it's very important to be well read and to be, to extend into these other aspects of life.
100%. So I just want to encourage people to not constrict yourself to one area of research. Look at history. Look at human history.
Learn.
Look at the history of societies that you may never have thought about. Here's a funny analogy. I was under, the Olympics just happened, and then we had breakdancing at the Olympics, and there was this huge uproar about this Australian breakdancer. And I remember growing up as a kid in California in the 70s and 80s, learning about this breakdancing that was emerging from the East Coast. That's where it was invented. My daughter and my son showed me a video a week ago, and they were showing me 1959 in Kenya, in Africa. And I swear to you, they were doing breakdancing in 1959 in Kenya. It was the same exact thing that they're doing today in 2024. Again, that opened up my mind. It was like, I need to look beyond the construct of just the United States. There's an entire planet. There's an entire solar system. There's an entire galaxy. We need to think beyond what's directly in front of us and open our minds.
Well, I think that lots of people do. I mean, I lead tours of Egypt. I lead tours of stone circles, like in South Africa,
Mhm.
Adam's calendar. So I love ancient sites and, you know, these stone circles, and you can get incredible energy from various vortexes, et cetera, all
Right.
around the planet. So there's that side to things as well. So you can face to face with
Mhm.
these this knowledge that has it surrounds us, right? I mean, scientists call it the information
Yeah.
field.
Two of the books that I'm reading right now. One's called The Moon's Galactic History. This is written by Constance Victoria Briggs. She's brilliant. And it's so important to understand what's happening up at the moon right now. Because over the next 20 to 30 years, we're going to see so much occurring on there that's going to have a direct effect on us here. Also, I'm reading Alien Agenda by Jim Marrs, another great
Right.
book.
Yeah.
So between the two of those books, it's opening up my mind. Now, I've been researching UFOs, I want to say professionally, since 2000.
Uh-huh.
But of course, with my own experiences, 1989, when I was 19 years old, that's when it really kicked off for me. But
Sure.
at 75, 78, 81, I had all my own personal experiences, which
Mm-hmm.
my mother put me into therapy for. Right? You know, I was into therapy for that. But I saw, but Carrie, I know what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
But that will never change for me. I'm a 53-year-old man now. Yes, I'm pretty damn good looking, I know, for a guy that was paralyzed for teeth coming back and all that. But my point is, I know what I saw. And I know that there are things beyond the conventional thought process, beyond what they teach us in school, beyond what they feed to us through our televisions and our
Sure.
smartphones. People read books, think for yourself.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of reading it myself. I
Mhm.
love reading. So let me see. I just what I want to do here is see if there's anyone in the chat that wants to ask you a question, because I think, you know, a lot of what you're saying could probably be stimulating. I know it's the dialogue is going fast and furious over here in the chat room.
Have you interviewed John D'Souza?
Yes, actually a
Okay,
few times.
yeah, okay, that guy is incredible.
Yeah,
And
he's great.
literally, the show X Files was based off of the work that he did when he was in the FBI. And I,
Yes, but it was also based on Richard Allen Miller,
mm,
the physicist I've interviewed. And he actually, I think he provided one of the first scripts, one of the first screenplays
oh wow.
for X Files, if I recall correctly.
And
So
isn't it funny how the Smoking Man and all
yeah,
these other individuals
but
there within that
he
show?
is somebody who's worked in black projects.
Mm, yeah. And now, you know, there are black projects that are based off of black budgets. There are special access projects, which even the highest levels of our government cannot
Right.
access. There's so much stuff happening.
There
And
is.
we need to, let's not lose sight of the fact that many of the UAPs, the UFOs that we see, are actually creations from these special access projects, from these black budget projects,
Yeah,
reverse engineered
reverse
technology.
engineered. Sure.
Mhm,
Absolutely.
mhm.
In fact, I wanted to make it, I was making a note to tell you this, but I don't know if you had followed the Charles Hall material.
Charles
Charles
P. Hall.
Hall is
Charles
a
P.
military
Hall.
guy. Sorry.
Charles P. Hall.
I don't remember if there's a P there. All
Mhm,
I know is Charles Hall. He deals with the tall whites
mhm.
that were found in the desert. That he was an airman who was
Yes,
based out
yes,
there
I'm aware of that
many
story.
years ago, like I think in the
I think
60s.
it's Charles P. Hall. I think.
Okay, fine. I call him Charles Hall. Anyway,
Okay.
I met him and his wife, and she would not let me interview him. But it was enough to be in his presence, hear him speak in person, and so on. This is years ago. I read all of his books. I can tell you that there's a video out there right now that's an interview, kind of a quasi video about him and slightly with him. So he says there that the Tic Tacs, and he's not talking about the Tic Tacs that they saw over San Diego or wherever it was. Those Tic Tacs are actually tall white scout crafts.
Really?
Yeah. And he just says it plainly in the video. I mean, he just says these tic tacs. And so all I'm saying is that, isn't that interesting that our military is bringing that up as a UFO they don't know about, and yet they are dealing with the tall whites in the desert.
I'm sorry, it was Charles J. Hall. Charles J. Hall. Charles James.
All right.
Yeah. That's who it is. That's who it is. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Anyway, and that those are actually, their scout craft. So what does that mean? I had a theory that I've read, as I say, quite a bit about the tall whites, and I for some reason feel I understand them to a degree. And I can say that he depicts their personalities, the way of looking at the world, a lot about their culture. And our military has sequined off a certain part of the desert where they have a hidden base and so on and so forth. And they come and go from our Earth all the time.
Well, right. So there's Dulce, there's up by Nellis Air Force Base. By the way, Rick Purcell from MUFON and I, and actually some of my kids, we actually rented a location 4.5 miles from Northrop Grumman's Site 4. And it was interesting, some of the things we were seeing at night. And I don't know, Rick Purcell was working on a book about pterodactyls or something. I don't know. He sees pterodactyls in Yosemite, but
all right, that
was a whole other story. But we had a great time. But it was very interesting to some of the patterns, the light patterns that we were seeing and observing at night. Strange, unnatural, not something that you would expect for conventional aircraft. And in Roswell, when we went to Roswell last month, sitting outside at about 11:30 at night, we saw 8 lights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, moving like this. And then they just disappeared. And we're like, what was that? A crop duster. It did not look like a conventional aircraft. I don't know, UFOs are out there, but you're talking about tall whites. 2 things have gone viral for me in my lifetime, right? When I released the book back in 2010, tens of thousands of copies that were downloaded of UFO Highway. Actually, over 100,000 copies were downloaded worldwide. And I sold a lot of them. But last year, I created a video on the tall whites. I'm happy if I get like 200 or 300 views on Facebook, literally.
Oh, wow. Well, you should, if you send me your stuff, then I'll put it on my Telegram. It'll get, 100,000 people to see it.
Thank you so much. If I get 300 or so videos on Facebook, I'm like, woohoo, right?
Right.
That video that I released on the tall whites, within 48 hours, had over 37,000 views. And then it ultimately ended up having like 40-something thousand views. And I was like, what did I touch on?
Right.
What was I saying that resonated with this audience? And you can see the chat dialogue between me and all the people. Some people were arguing with me, saying that I had it all wrong. I said, look, I spoke with Linda Moulton Howe for over 4 hours in 2014, and we talked about the tall whites. We talked about other non-human entities. We talked about Nellis Air Force Base, S4, everything. We even talked about the O negative, RH negative blood type and how that applies to everything that we think of when we talk about aliens. But the tall whites, why does it resonate with people so much? Are they the progenitors? Are they an offshoot of the Anunnaki? Are they the predecessors of the Anunnaki? I don't know. There's so much to talk about. And anyway, I've been writing a lot about that on my website, UFO Currents. Please go to UFOcurrents.com. Check out my stuff.
Absolutely. All right. Now, let me see. I don't know how long we've been on this show, so let me check the time because I don't want to go too long. All right. So we've gone. The time flies, right? Mm-hmm. So basically, people in the chat, if you want to ask Anthony a question while we still have him here, put a question mark at the end of your statement because I see a lot here, but I don't know why I can't scroll.
And if Carrie, if anybody wants to send me cigars to my P.O. box, I smell Drew Estate and Cohiba. And thank you.
All right.
That's a joke. That's a joke. I'm being farcical.
Okay. So question marks, anybody. Okay. Project. Oh, Leonid. Well, you and I know what happened.
Let me talk about that.
All right.
So I had information that was given to me about something called Leonid. It's an acronym. not to be confused with, the Leonid astronomical phenomena. So Leonid stood for Low Earth Orbit Nanosatellite Interceptor Defense. That was a book that I was writing, and it exposed a lot about the military-industrial complex, as well as non-human entities and a major Chinese interest. That's all I'm going to say on that. I was threatened when I was about to release that book. I had a website, literally projectleadit.com. Everything was there. It was about to drop. And I got a very serious threat. And I got visited by Bill Air Force Base, AFOSI. And I was like, okay, what? What is causing all of this? And of course, I was exposing quite a bit of information that they didn't want shared. Why? Because I had uncovered the public face of Leonid that was the actual congressional budgetary backbone of this project. And it had to do with the University of Hawaii. It had to do with Aerojet here in Northern California, which is an aerospace company. And then I got contacted by somebody in the government that was asking me too many questions. And that's when I bowed out. But I gave what information I had uncovered to Linda Moulton Howe. So if you go to her website, the Earth Files website, it's there. You'll see some of what I uncovered. And it was insane.
Okay.
Will I ever release a book on Project Leonid? No, but perhaps I'll make a video where I talk about what I uncovered, because it's been so many years. Nanosatellites, right? So a woman had approached me at a private location here in Northern California off the coast. I was at a private event for 4 days, a mansion, Carrie. Mm. And I was purposely sent there by somebody who was a doctor who had been in the Air Force. And he was my client for my software company. But he had sent me to this location. And there, lo and behold, this woman and her mother were there in this small adjoining house that we stayed in. It was gorgeous. These are very wealthy people. And she comes up to me and she says, "Hi, Anthony, I want to introduce myself." And she tells me about her husband who's been missing. And why is he missing? Well, he made the mistake of publicly announcing that they had successfully launched the nanosatellites. And he worked for an aerospace company. Anyway, weeks later after this, he turned up. They found him in a car next to an abandoned McDonald's at Moffett Field, and he had unalived himself. So did he unalive himself, or did somebody else put him there as a message? Don't make the mistake of talking about facets of the Leonid program. And he did. So that's one of the stories that, bothers me to this day.
Right. Well, I interviewed you and you got a death threat for you and your family. And I was told to convey that message from one of my contacts, who was, working with the American government. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't want to go down that road, because I did agree not to release the interview I did with you and never have. So, obviously that's not the only time.
Carrie, I will forever be grateful to you, for you. And whenever you need me for anything, you just call me and ask me, and I will be there for you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, likewise.
By the way, the guy that's writing the book on pterodactyls, Rick Prestel, he was with us that night in South San Francisco when we met. So.
Yes. Yeah, I remember him.
The pterodactyl guy, Rick. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well, you did a conference up there that I think I spoke at.
You were one of the keynote speakers at the conference, the SAC UFO Con in 2012.
Yeah, a long time ago.
That conference sold out. We had people from around the world.
It was a great conference. Yeah, you're pretty good at that, I think.
Thank you.
Pretty good at.
Perhaps I'll do one again one day.
Yeah, so you maybe should think about doing that again.
Thank you.
All right, I think I'm going to let you go now, unless there's any topic that you have a burning desire to talk to the audience about, because here's your chance.
Right. So my car, we were on the way back from Texas, we were smashed into our SUV, and I lost all my camera equipment. I was able to salvage one camera from my camera bag. All the clothes, everything was run over by a bunch of people on the freeway. So at this point in time, I'm asking for help. If you can go to Ghost Hunter Apps and buy my software, if you're in the paranormal, go to ghosthunterapps.com. And if you like reading about ufology and everything that I research, you can go to strangelightspublishing.com and buy my ebooks at Amazon and Google, and also my physical books, and at UFOcurrents.com. I have 3 sites. You can buy my books and my software. I'm grateful to you guys. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm just going to put I have your site right here, I think. Yeah. And then do you have links on this site to these other ones that you mentioned?
Yeah, if you go to strangelightspublishing.com, that has all my books.
Oh,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah,
so it's a different URL. Strange
Lights Publishing.com. And books. If you click on books up at the top, the little link says books. You can see my Google books, my Amazon books, and the signed paperbacks. So if you buy a signed paperback book from me, you will get 2 custom designed bookmarks by me signed, as well as the book signed. And I will be forever grateful for you guys. Thank you so much. And I got great.
You're so organized. I mean, very few people that I interview are that organized, I have to say. So that's really nice.
Thank you. I have great reviews, by the way. At the bottom of those pictures, you'll see all the reviews.
All right.
Very well-known people. If you scroll down just a little bit more.
Yep.
Look at that. Jay Blumke, who created UFO Hunters on the Sci-Fi Network. George Norrie from Coast to Coast.
Right.
Noria Hayakawa, who was on The Conspiratologist, who's also been on Coast to Coast.
Yep.
And MUFON, people from MUFON. Oh, Sean Stone. Do you remember Sean Stone? Oliver Stone. Him, Linda Moulton Howe. I got great reviews.
That's lovely.
I promise you guys, great books. I would really appreciate the support. Thank you so much.
All right. Wonderful. Well, I'm so glad we got back in touch. Stay in touch with me. Anthony, send me stuff. If you want stuff out there, I'm happy to distribute it for you, bring people back to your stuff. Because I post on my Telegram every single day.
Okay.
And I love helping people, especially, when they're on the same topics I am, because it expands, the people's understanding of these subjects. And we need to talk about them.
Keep fighting and uncovering for the truth, because you do it better than anybody I know. It's true.
You. That's very kind of you. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm serious. I love researching. I love investigating and getting to the root of the truth. That's really a labor of love, as I can see you do as well. So I think we need people like us out there. I'm sure there's tons of people watching this that are like that. So I think it's wonderful that it's blossomed into this incredible community. So we do have each other. And I think that the future is going to be brighter because of it.
Thank you, Carrie.
All right. You take care.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.